Okay. So first thing I'll bring up is obviously unbeknownst to me actually, but obviously now that you brought it up, we'll talk about the Labor Party conference because they brought up the capital gains tax again. I think it's a hotly debated topic all the time. I just want to actually know what your thoughts are. I mean, I get you. We already have your thoughts and my thoughts on the capital gains tax as a whole, but I would like to know what you think about them potentially bringing it back as a policy.
On pure strategy, when it comes to the Labor Party conference, and they're not necessarily voting to campaign or voting for a CGT and wealth tax. They're voting for investigating, voting for a meeting and then a meeting to decide on whether or not they're going to do it. I think they're going to do it regardless. On strategy, the worst mistake that the Labor Party did in hindsight was backing out on the capital gains tax and wealth taxes of such, and kind of putting it mildly, I can't probably say it too early in the podcast. I can't say any swear words, but just being scared by being themselves and losing a big identity of their party, which is, free redistribution of wealth. Let's just be honest here. I think in terms of rhetoric, it's really important. I've spoken about this previously in the last two podcast episodes. I was very, 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 especially when we were talking about the aftermath of the American election, the big criticization of the Democratic Party was that they weren't
criticism, but
this criticism, you grammar Nazi, of the Democratic Party was that their messaging, for one, wasn't clear, and it was too small tweaks around the edges. So it was like, oh, we'll do this one thing, but it'll be like a $1,000, but it'll be two $500 checks in a split in. It was very like muddled up. Oh, you get a wage hike of 0.5% of something to that effect. And there wasn't much messaging around even that, which was a big reason why they didn't perform well. What I was very scared about was the Labor Party doing the exact same mistake as the Democratic Party, and they kind of did the exact same, and they kind of did that mistake in the previous cycle when they backed off on the CGT and wealth tax. They kind of did a half and half on getting rid of the GST on fruit and veg, but that wasn't a good example of being kind of half-assed, twiddling around the edges and not really giving a good message. So this, in terms of rhetoric and for people and their voters knowing the Labor Party's position on things, being very clear now is very much a good thing. So it doesn't really matter whether or not you think about it or think it's a good thing. The Labor Party being clear on that position, on being for the capital gains tax, will be very good for getting to their base, because that didn't really happen. They weren't really much ado about nothing the previous cycle.
Totally agree. I think, like, for me, with them bringing it in again, or they're voting to investigate. Okay, you know what I mean.
Well, I think they're going to do it. I just I want to be clear.
I think that not enough times really passed from when they said they wouldn't do it as well. I sort of I find it a bit strategically okay. They're trying to win support back, but in saying that, almost all the same people are there from when they wanted to face it, when they didn't want to do it last election. I think it's just, I think it's fucking, excuse my language, but I think it's, it's just a stunt, really. I think, it comes across to me as, I don't know what the word you'd use, maybe tacky. They're like, oh, in my view, it's like, oh,
very Kamala Harris-y.
We screwed it up. we should have done what we said we're going to do, but we didn't do what we said we're going to do. But actually, that's probably what some of our voters wanted. It's obvious almost that's what some of them wanted, but they didn't do it. But now, they've obviously said to themselves, "Hey, look, we've screwed up here." Which I guess that's what you're going to do as a political party, but to me, it just comes across as tacky.
I mean, you can look at it very cynically and say that their consultants or their advisors went, look, Luxon's scandal with his 7 houses and lowering the Brightline test to 2 years and then selling it did not paint a very good picture. We can take advantage of this, and we can be hey, he's not for the everyday working New Zealander. But it can look very cynical, and I can definitely see that point. But the worst thing that the Labour Party could have done was carry on the course of appealing to the moderate wing of the National Party, which which is honestly the worst thing that the Labour Party could do, because they'll lose their base, and they'll lose their more centrist left wing Labour Party base, which is I keep saying the worst thing that could happen, and you'll get a repeat of
to be honest,
last election.
Like with that whole I never understood that whole debacle with the whole having 7 houses and changing the Brightline test. I mean, it's not directly related, obviously, because it's a different, separate issue. Well, it's not really a separate issue. It's sort of actually connected to what we're talking about with the whole Luxon situation. I'm just saying, I never really understood why everyone was up in arms about that.
I bring that up because when you said previously that it's the same people, or almost the same people, they've changed their opinion not by a dime. I bring that up because I'm using your thought process or a more cynical view of the conference and saying, well, this could be the reason why. I think that if the RNZ poll, which I have, there was an RNZ poll that came out on the capital gains tax. It was a while ago. That 65% of New Zealanders would support a capital gains tax in some form, and 57% they would support it on an investment property. Now, if that was more like 50% or maybe 45%, I don't think that would, especially with the Luxon scandal with the house, with the investment housing, if that didn't necessarily happen, or he did sell it but he didn't lower the Brightline test, or if there was anything different, I would say that maybe they wouldn't be for. So you could be right. And I'm not saying you're not right, but I think in terms of rhetoric, in terms of campaigning and starting now to be saying we want this government to be a one-term government, it's important to get your foundation right.
Well, the thing is, for me, I think there already is a capital gains tax. Right.
That was lowered to 2 years, and it's a Brightline test, but it's not like it's a bit of like a.
So the thing is there's already one, and okay, it was 10 years before. That's just way too much. That was actually dry. That would have been one of the things that was driving up the housing market.
We've argued on the merits on a capital gains tax before. Let's argue on the merits of the conference decision. I'm not going to say anything. Like I said earlier, we've gone over it before, so we don't need to go on it in great detail today. But I think I guess the jury's going to be out for a wee while to whether or not they're going to stick with it and actually go ahead with it. I mean, I guess the people that they represent probably would like to see one. Majority, I don't know about. Some of their members probably wouldn't like to have it, but that's why you have the whips. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Treaty Principles Bill first reading is a good example of independent thought mattering nothing, not meaning anything.
Well, exactly, and the thing is too is what do you call it? Yeah, the thing is with that, right, is you've got the Labour Party that they've always sort of hummed and hawed about it. When Jacinda Ardern was there, they were going to have one, and then they sort of backed out while they were in government.
One of the biggest mistakes in terms of messaging, I think, that could have ever happened. It doesn't matter whether or not you think it should be. In terms of messaging to its not only their base but just to the wider public that we can stick with our own policy. It was maybe not the biggest thing, the biggest mistake, but it's one of the biggest mistakes. Do you hear that buzzing?
I heard it just then. It's gone again.
Okay. There's probably not an issue. I keep hearing everyone else. It's probably not the biggest issue, but it's one of the biggest fuck ups. I can swear now. 10 minutes and yeah, it keeps happening. It's like a bee. One of the worst things that they could have done, I think.
Well, I think for them to go back to it, I guess I guess they have to do it because obviously, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but obviously it didn't. That's what obviously what their voter base wanted, and they didn't deliver. So I guess they have to go back and look at it and go,
yeah,
hey, we've got to look at this again.
It's
obviously
that in the wealth tax as well.
Wow, yeah. Well, that's just hope not, but they probably try that.
Boiling it down, it doesn't matter about policy. I don't think policy matters as much. I think rhetoric and narrative matters a lot, but policy definitely helps. It isn't the end all be all. You can't just say we will give you this much amount of money, blah 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 blah, and then just sit on your ass and wait for everyone to vote. No, you need to be on the ground and messaging. That's why the Luxon mistake and everything around that, and the Treaty Principles Bill is key for the Labour Party to kind of take this opportunity and run with it. And I think that CGT is part of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can.
Well, anyway,